Do you know why I rose from a forgotten island to command all of Europe? It was not chance, nor luck. It was mindset. The world bends to those who prepare, those who see chaos not as a curse, but as an opportunity. I am Napoleon Bonaparte, and today I will teach you how to think as I did and still do. Look around you. Inflation rises. Supplies vanish from your markets. Governments stockpile in secret. The signs are clear to those who have eyes to see. You must not wait. You must not hope. You must act. Today I shall reveal to you 12 essential principles drawn from my victories, my failures, and my strategies that you must master if you are to survive the storms ahead. These are not mere theories. They are the very tactics that built empires and toppled kings. Mark my words. Lesson 7 alone could determine whether you dominate your fate or are crushed by it. I have reviewed the chronicles of my life, the dispatches of war, the secrets of statecraft, and I have matched them against the dangers you now face. What I uncovered is more relevant today than ever before, and if you, like me, seek to conquer the uncertainties ahead, then subscribe to this channel now. Arm yourself with knowledge, strategy, and foresight. Only the prepared shall command their destiny. Stay until the end, for I will unveil one final lesson, a truth I learned too late, that may make all the difference when the next great crisis descends. Trust me, fortune favors only the prepared mind. You believe your circumstances define you, that your past dictates your future, that your current station in life somehow determines what heights you can reach. I am here to shatter these illusions. Picture yourself on a small, forgotten island in the Mediterranean, Corsica, a place where most would see limitation, isolation, irrelevance. But I saw something different. I saw a launching pad for domination. Let me tell you what truly matters in the rise to power. And it isn't where you begin, it's how you think. From my first breath, I refused to accept the boundaries others saw as fixed and immutable. While they saw walls, I saw doorways. While they accepted their fate, I wrote my own. When I arrived at military school in France, I was mocked. The other cadets, sons of nobility and wealth, they sneered at my accent, laughed at my modest origins. But while they relied on their names, I relied on my mind. While they slept, I studied. While they socialized, I strategized. Every slight, every mockery, every disadvantage, I transformed them into fuel. You must understand this fundamental truth. Your current position is not your final destination. It is merely the starting point from which you will launch your conquest. Every great empire begins not with resources, but with vision, not with advantages, but with unshakable self-belief. Look at your life now. Perhaps you feel trapped in a job beneath your potential. Perhaps debt weighs upon you like chains. Perhaps others dismiss your ambitions as fantasy. Good. Let them dismiss you. Let them underestimate you. Their doubt is your greatest weapon. I will tell you what I did when faced with limitation. I did not wish for better circumstances. I did not pray for luck. I worked with a fury that would have frightened even my enemies, had they been awake to witness it. Every moment others wasted, I invested. Every resource others squandered, I maximized. You must develop the same relentless drive. When others sleep, you plan. When others complain, you act. When others wait for permission, you move with absolute conviction. This is how empires are built, not through inheritance, but through unstoppable will. Remember, your background is not your destiny. Your current limitations are not permanent prison walls. They are temporary obstacles that will make your eventual victory all the more spectacular. Every great leader, every empire builder, every history maker started somewhere, usually somewhere unremarkable. What matters is not the size of your beginning, but the scale of your vision and the intensity of your dedication. I built an empire from a forgotten island because I refused to let my origin become my destiny. You can build your empire from wherever you stand right now if you embrace this same unshakable determination. The world does not give way to those who were born into advantage. It gives way to those who seize advantage, who create it through sheer force of will and relentless action. This is your first lesson in thinking like an emperor. Your circumstances are not your sentence. They are your staging ground. Look around you now. What others see as barriers, you must see as building blocks. What they see as disadvantages, you must transform into unique strengths. This is how I rose from Corsica to command Europe. This is how you will rise from wherever you stand to command your destiny. Remember this always. The size of your origin has no bearing on the magnitude of your destiny. It is your vision, your will, and your unrelenting action that will determine the empire you build. The time for excuses is over. The time for waiting is done. Your empire awaits. Will you remain bound by the circumstances others accept as limitations? Or will you rise, as I did, to transform your modest beginning into an unstoppable force? The choice, as always, is yours. But know this: history remembers not those who accepted their fate, but those who dared to rewrite it. There is a lie they tell you about success. They call it luck. They speak of chance, of being in the right place at the right time. I am here to tell you what they fear to admit. There is no such thing as luck. There is only preparation meeting. Opportunity. When I seized power in France, they called it fortunate timing. When I won battles against superior forces, they whispered about favorable weather. When I rose to become emperor, they muttered about circumstance. They were blind to the truth. Every victory was planned, every success anticipated, every triumph prepared for long before the moment arrived. Let me share with you the secret that transformed me from a junior artillery officer into the master of Europe. The prepared mind creates its own luck. While others wait for opportunity to knock, the emperor builds doors where there were none. Picture your life as a battlefield. Every day, opportunities march past like armies. Most people see only chaos, random events, unpredictable challenges. But you must train your mind to see patterns where others see pandemonium, to recognize opportunity where others perceive only threat. When I was young, I spent countless hours studying military strategy. While others complained about the tedium, I filled my mind with knowledge that would later decide the fate of nations. When revolution erupted in France, I didn't scramble to understand. I had prepared for years. While others reacted, I executed. This is the first principle of the prepared mind. Knowledge gathered in peace becomes power in chaos. Right now, in this moment of relative calm, you must prepare for the storms ahead. Study your industry's trends. Master your craft beyond what is required. Understand the forces that shape your world, but mere knowledge is not enough. You must develop the habit of strategic anticipation. Every morning I would ask myself, what opportunities might today present? What threats might emerge? What resources must I have ready? This constant state of readiness, this is what separates emperors from ordinary men. When others praise luck, they reveal their ignorance of this deeper truth. Success is not about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about being ready when that moment arrives. And more importantly, it's about being able to recognize that moment when others see only confusion. Think of how many opportunities you've missed because you weren't prepared to seize them. How many chances slipped past because you couldn't recognize them in time. This ends today. From this moment forward, you must become a student of pattern recognition, a master of preparation. Every night before you rest, ask yourself, what skills am I developing? What knowledge am I acquiring? What resources am I gathering? What connections am I building? These are not idle questions. They are the foundation of future victory. When I planned my campaigns, I didn't just prepare one strategy. I prepared 3, 4, 5 alternatives. When obstacles arose, as they always do, I didn't waste time in confusion. I simply executed the next prepared plan. This is how you must approach your own life. Remember, the universe does not reward those who simply hope for success. It yields to those who prepare for it with obsessive detail. Every great achievement in history was years in the making, carefully planned, long before the decisive moment arrived. You must develop this same relentless preparation. Study while others sleep. Plan while others party. Build capabilities while others seek comfort. This is not sacrifice, it is investment in your empire. Look around you now. What opportunities are brewing that others can't see? What skills will be crucial in the years ahead? What connections should you be building today? The time to prepare is not when opportunity presents itself. It is now, in the quiet moments before the storm. This is how empires are built, not through random chance, but through systematic preparation, not through lucky breaks, but through carefully cultivated readiness. The prepared mind doesn't wait for fortune. It creates conditions where fortune becomes inevitable. Let others cling to their belief in luck. Let them wait passively for their moment to arrive. You know better now. You understand that true. Power comes not from hoping for good fortune, but from preparing so thoroughly that fortune becomes irrelevant. Your preparation begins today. Every book you read, every skill you master, every connection you forge, these are the building blocks of your future empire. Remember, fortune does not favor the lucky. Fortune favors the prepared mind. Do you know what separates an emperor from a common soldier? It is not courage. It is not strength. It is the ability to see 3 moves ahead while others scramble to understand what just happened. This is the art of anticipation. And it is what will elevate you from reactive survival to imperial dominance. When I faced the combined armies of Europe, they thought they were facing a mere general. What they didn't understand was that I had already fought the battle 100 times in my mind. While they reacted to my movements, I was executing a strategy, conceived months before. This is how you must learn to think, not in moments, but in movements. Let me teach you the imperial art of anticipation. First, you must understand that every event casts a shadow before it arrives. There are always signs, always indicators, if you train your mind to recognize them. When I planned the invasion of Italy, I didn't just study maps. I studied weather patterns, harvest cycles, political tensions, and social undercurrents. Everything is connected. Everything leaves traces of what is to come. Think of your own life now. What shadows are being cast? What trends are emerging in your industry? What subtle shifts in technology, society, or economics might reshape your battlefield in the years ahead? The ordinary man sees only what is. The emperor sees what will be. You must develop what I call the 3-move mind. When you make a decision, don't just consider its immediate effect. Ask yourself, what will this cause others to do? And then, what opportunities will their reactions create? This is how you transform simple actions into strategic campaigns. Let me share a secret of anticipation that served me well. People are predictable in their patterns, even if not in their particulars. When I faced an Austrian general, I didn't need to know his exact plan. I knew how Austrian generals were trained to think. I knew their doctrines, their habits, their instincts. This knowledge was worth more than 1,000 spies. You must develop this same deep understanding of the forces and players in your own arena. Study not just what your competitors do, but why they do it. Learn not just your industry's current state, but its underlying patterns. This is how you begin to see the future before others even understand the present. But anticipation is not merely about prediction, it is about preparation. When I marched on Moscow, I had already prepared for 12 different scenarios. Russians burned their own capital. I had anticipated this. The winter came early. I had considered this too. My failure was not in anticipation, but in heeding my own warnings. Learn from my mistake. Anticipation without appropriate action is merely interesting theater. Here is how you must train your mind. Every morning, take 5 minutes to project 3 moves ahead. What are your current advantages? How might they shift? What threats could emerge? What opportunities might these threats create? This is not paranoia. This is strategic foresight. Remember, the greatest opportunities often come disguised as problems that only you have anticipated. When others panic at unexpected changes, you should smile because you saw them coming and prepared accordingly. This is how empires are built, not through reactive scrambling, but through calculated anticipation. Consider this. Every major shift in history was obvious in hindsight. The signs were there, the patterns clear, but only to those who had trained themselves to see them. You must become one of these seers, not through mysticism, but through rigorous observation and strategic thinking. Start today. Look at your life, your career, your ambitions. Don't just see what is, project what could be. What forces are gathering? What alliances are forming? What technologies are emerging? Train your mind to see patterns where others see only chaos. This is the essence of imperial thinking. While others live in the present, you must live simultaneously in the present and the future. While they react to events, you must be setting events in motion. While they wonder what happened, you must be executing the next phase of your strategy. Remember, the art of anticipation is not about perfect prediction. It is about developing a deep understanding of patterns, preparing for multiple possibilities, and positioning yourself to take advantage of whatever comes. This is how you transcend the reactive existence of ordinary men and embrace the anticipatory power of an emperor. Your mind must become a theater of future possibilities. Your thinking must extend beyond the immediate. Your strategies must account not just for what is, but for what could be. This is the difference between those who are ruled by circumstances and those who rule despite them. The time for reactive living is over. Embrace the power of imperial anticipation. See further, prepare deeper, move faster. The future belongs to those who anticipate it. Let me tell you about the greatest enemy I ever faced. It wasn't the British at Waterloo. It wasn't the Russians in their burning Moscow. It was something far more basic, far more devastating: logistics. An army marches on its stomach, and an empire crumbles when it forgets this fundamental truth. You dream of glory, of conquest, of rising above the masses to claim your destiny. But listen carefully to what I am about to tell you. Before you can build an empire, you must first secure its foundations. I have seen mighty armies reduced to nothing, not by enemy fire, but by empty stomachs. I have watched grand strategies collapse, not from tactical errors, but from failing to secure the basics. Think of your life as a military campaign. What are your supply lines, your reserves, your fallback positions? In today's world, these translate to something very specific: food, water, shelter, energy, and financial security. These are not exciting topics, but neither is defeat. Let me share a truth learned in blood. The most brilliant strategy means nothing if you cannot sustain yourself long enough to execute it. When I planned my campaigns, my first concern was never the enemy's position. It was ensuring my army could eat, drink, and move. This same principle applies to your personal empire. Here is your first command: create a 3-month reserve of everything essential: food that will last, water that is clean, money that is accessible, energy that is reliable. This is not paranoia. This is the foundation of independence. Without these basics, you are not a strategist. You are a hostage to circumstance. You must understand. The world is entering an age of uncertainty. Supply chains fracture, markets convulse. Systems that seemed unshakable reveal their fragility. In such times, those who have secured their basics become the masters of their fate. Those who haven't become desperate subjects of chance. When I marched into Russia, I had calculated everything except the true cost of stretched supply lines. This mistake cost me an empire. Learn from this. In your own life, never extend yourself so far that you cannot sustain your basic needs. Every emperor must first be a guardian of fundamentals. Here is your battle plan for securing the basics. First, analyze your vulnerabilities. What would happen if your income stopped for 3 months? If your city's water supply was compromised? If energy costs tripled? These are not pleasant thoughts, but they are necessary ones. Second, build your reserves systematically. Start with a week's supply of essentials, then a month, then 3 months. This is not hoarding. This is strategic preparation. Every great fortress is built one stone at a time. Third, secure multiple sources for everything critical. One water source is vulnerability. 3 sources are security. 1 income stream is risk. Multiple streams are strength. This is how you build resilience into the foundation of your empire. Remember, the basics are not just physical. They include skills. Can you repair what you own? Knowledge. Do you understand the systems you depend on? Relationships. Who can you rely on when systems fail? These 2 are part of your foundation. You must develop what I call the survivor's eye, the ability to look at any situation and immediately identify what is truly essential. In battle, this meant knowing which position must be held at all costs. In your life, it means knowing which assets, skills, and relationships are absolutely critical. This is not about fear. This is about freedom. When you have secured your basics, you can think clearly, plan boldly, act decisively. The desperate man cannot strategize. He can only react. But the prepared man, the one who has secured his foundation, he can think like an emperor. Look around your life now. What basics have you left unsecured? What essential supplies are running thin? What critical skills have you neglected to develop? These gaps in your foundation are where defeat will find you if you do not address them. The time for comfortable ignorance is over. You must become intimately familiar with everything that sustains your daily existence. Understanding these systems is not beneath you. It is the very thing that will elevate you above the masses who take them for granted. Remember, every empire I built started with securing basics. Every campaign I won was first won in the quartermaster's tent. Every victory was first secured by attending to fundamental needs. This is not glamorous work, but it is essential work. Your task begins now. Audit your supplies, check your reserves, assess your vulnerabilities. This is your first step toward true power, because without securing the basics, all other ambitions are merely fantasies. The choice is stark but simple. Secure your basics or watch your empire perish before it begins. There is no middle ground. There is no room for hesitation. The time for action is now. Glory, honor, victory. These are the words that fill history books. But let me tell you what truly decides the fate of empires: supply lines, ammunition counts, food reserves, the unglamorous machinery of success that no one wishes to discuss. Today, I will teach you the art of logistics, the true foundation of power. When they speak of my victories, they talk of brilliant tactics at Austerlitz, of courage at Marengo, of innovation at Jena. But do you know what really won those battles? It was the careful calculation of powder supplies, the precise movement of food wagons, the meticulous planning of medical resources. While other generals dreamed of glory, I counted bullets and measured bread. You must understand this fundamental truth. In any endeavor, it is not the grand strategy that ultimately determines success. It is the unglamorous details of execution. The greatest plan in the world fails without the proper resources in the proper place at the proper time. Let me share with you the secret that transformed me from a mere tactical genius into the master of Europe. I became obsessed with logistics. While other commanders focused solely on troop movements, I calculated the exact number of wagons needed to support each battalion. While they planned attacks, I planned supply routes. This is how empires are truly built, through meticulous attention to the machinery of success. Think of your own life as a military campaign. What are your supply lines, your resources, your backup systems? In today's world, these translate into something very specific. How many months of expenses can you cover? What alternative income sources have you developed? What systems have you put in place to ensure continuous operation under stress? Here is your first lesson in logistics. Never count on a single supply line. In my campaigns, I always maintained at least 3 routes for critical supplies. When the Russians burned their crops and retreated, many of my supply lines were cut, but not all. You must apply this same principle to your life. One job is vulnerability. Multiple income streams are strength. One skill set is risk. Diverse capabilities are security. The second lesson, calculate everything. Leave nothing to chance. When I moved my armies, I knew exactly how many pounds of food each soldier needed per day, multiplied by the number of soldiers, multiplied by the projected campaign length, plus a margin for delays and losses. This same precise calculation must be applied to your own empire building. Consider this. How many days could your current resources sustain you if all income stopped? How long would your food last? Your savings? Your fuel? These are not pleasant calculations, but they are essential ones. The emperor who fails to count his resources counts his days until defeat. You must develop what I call the logistician's eye, the ability to look past the glamorous facade of any operation and see the supply chains that sustain it. When I looked at a map, I didn't just see territories to conquer, I saw routes for supplies, farmlands for foraging, roads for wagon trains. In your world, this means understanding the hidden machinery that powers your success. Don't just learn your craft. Learn how to sustain your craft. Don't just build skills. Build systems to maintain and improve those skills. Don't just gather resources. Create networks to replenish those resources. Remember this. The amateur focuses on tactics. The professional focuses on logistics. Anyone can dream up a brilliant strategy. Few can execute it. Even fewer can sustain it. This is where true mastery lies, not in the flash of brilliant ideas, but in the sustained, methodical execution of those ideas. Let me tell you about my greatest defeat, the Russian campaign. Do you know what truly defeated me? Not the Russian army, not the scorched earth, not even the brutal winter. It was the failure of logistics. My supply lines stretched too thin. My calculations proved inadequate for the scale of the campaign. Learn from this. No ambition can survive the collapse of its logistical foundation. Here is how you must think. For every goal you set, immediately calculate the resources required. For every plan you make, triple the estimated supplies needed. For every success you achieve, immediately begin strengthening the supply lines that sustain it. Look at your life now. What systems have you put in place to sustain your success? What resources have you allocated for contingencies? What backup plans have you developed for your backup plans? This is not excessive. This is the minimum requirement for sustained victory. The time for glamorous dreams is over. You must become a master of the mundane, a commander of the commonplace, an emperor of execution. Glory may win battles, but logistics wins wars. Your task is not just to succeed, it is to build the machinery that makes success inevitable. Remember, every great achievement in history was built on a foundation of meticulous logistics. Every empire I built was first, built in supply ledgers and resource calculations. Every victory I claimed was first won through careful preparation and relentless attention to detail. Your path to power begins not with grand strategies, but with precise calculations, not with bold dreams, but with meticulous planning, not with hopes of glory, but with mastery of logistics. This is the true art of empire building. And now it is yours to command. When I built my empire, do you know what truly separated me from those who failed? It wasn't grand vision. Many had that. It wasn't bold dreams. Those are common as dirt. It was my understanding of a simple truth. Every fortress, no matter how mighty, begins with placing a single stone correctly. You dream of empires, of fortunes, of legacies that will echo through time. But let me teach you what I learned on my rise from obscurity to emperor. Great achievements are not built through dramatic gestures. They are built through the patient, methodical placement of countless individual elements, each one laid with perfect precision. Think of the fortresses I built across Europe. Each one began the same way, with engineers carefully selecting and placing that crucial first stone. Get this foundation wrong, and no amount of subsequent effort matters. Get it right, and you create a base upon which greatness can be built. The same principle applies to building your personal empire. You must identify your first stone, that crucial foundation upon which everything else will rest. Perhaps it's a key skill that will differentiate you from others. Perhaps it's a critical relationship that will open doors. Perhaps it's a core habit that will drive everything else. Here is your first command. Identify that single stone. What is the one thing that, if mastered completely, would transform everything else? Don't scatter your efforts. Don't try to build everything at once. Find that crucial first element and make it unshakable. When I reformed the French army, I didn't try to change everything at once. I started with artillery, my expertise, my foundation. I made it the finest in Europe. Everything else built from there. This is how you must think. What is your artillery? What is the one area where you can create undeniable superiority? Remember this: mediocrity comes from trying to do everything at once. Excellence comes from doing one thing perfectly, then building upon that success. The greatest fortresses in Europe weren't built in a day, and they weren't built haphazardly. They were built stone by stone, each one placed with purpose. You must develop what I call the builder's eye, the ability to see both the final vision and the next crucial stone that must be laid. When I looked at a battlefield, I saw both the final victory and the next immediate step needed to achieve it. This is how you must approach your own empire building. Let me share a secret of construction that served me well: the visible stones. Get the glory, but it's the hidden foundation stones that bear the weight. When I built my administrative systems, the parts that showed, the ceremonies, the titles, the visible power, these were actually the least important. The real strength lay in the hidden systems, the careful procedures, the quiet but crucial protocols that made everything work. This is how you must build. Don't be seduced by what shows. Focus on what supports. Build your foundation so strong that it could bear 10 times the weight you plan to place upon it. This is not excessive. This is wisdom. Your task begins. Now, identify your first stone. Make it perfect. Not good, not excellent, perfect. Then build from there, each new element connecting to and supporting what came before. This is how empires rise, not through luck or chance, but through methodical, purposeful construction. Remember, the greatest mistake is not starting too small. It's trying to start too big. I've seen countless ambitious men fail because they tried to build everything at once. The ones who succeeded, they started with one thing, mastered it completely, then built upon that mastery. Look at your life now. What is that first stone for you? What foundation must you lay? Don't move forward until you've identified it. Don't proceed until you know exactly where it must be placed. This patience now will save you years of wasted effort later. The time for dreams is over. The time for careful, methodical building begins. Every fortress starts with one stone. Every empire begins with one foundation. Your task is not to build quickly. It is to build correctly. Your path to power starts here, with this understanding. Greatness is not built through grand gestures. It is built through careful, methodical, relentless attention to fundamentals. Place your first stone. Make it perfect. Everything else will flow from there. Let me share with you the secret that won me more battles than all my cannons combined: the power of decisive action. While others deliberated, I struck. While they planned, I conquered. While they hesitated, I changed the course of history. This is not mere aggression. It is the art of seizing destiny. At Austerlitz, do you know what truly secured my victory? It wasn't superior numbers. I was outnumbered. It wasn't better equipment. My army was weary from marching. It was the decisive strike at precisely the right moment, When I saw the enemy make their critical mistake, I didn't call a council. I didn't weigh options. I struck immediately and with total commitment. You must understand this fundamental truth. In war, in business, in life, the window of opportunity rarely stays open long. Hesitation is not prudence. It is defeat in disguise. When the moment presents itself, you must act with the speed and force of a thunderbolt. But hear me carefully. This is not about reckless action. Before Austerlitz, I spent months preparing, studying, positioning. I knew every hill, every road, every possible scenario. This is the paradox you must master. Prepare slowly. Execute swiftly. Plan meticulously. Act decisively. Think of your own battles now. How many opportunities have slipped away while you gathered more information? How many victories have been lost to endless deliberation? The world belongs to those who act, not to those who merely think about acting. Let me teach you the art of decisive action. First, you must develop what I call the striker's eye, the ability to recognize the exact moment when action will yield maximum results. This comes from deep preparation and constant observation. When I studied a battlefield, I wasn't just looking at the present. I was seeing the points where future opportunities would emerge. The second principle: when you strike, commit totally. Half measures are worse than no action at all. They waste resources and telegraph your intentions without achieving your objectives. When I committed to a campaign, every element of my force moved with unified purpose. This is how you must act with complete conviction. Remember this: the greatest risk is not in acting too boldly, it is in acting too timidly. I've seen more battles lost to hesitation than to poor strategy. When the moment comes, you must throw your full force into the action. Anything less is just an invitation to defeat. Here is the method I used. Before any major campaign, I would identify the 3 critical points where decisive action would be most effective. Then I would prepare specifically for those moments. When they arrived, I could act instantly because I had already thought through the execution. You must develop this same approach. In your business, your career, your life, what are the critical points where decisive action will yield the greatest results? Identify them now. Prepare for them now. When they appear, you must be ready to strike without hesitation. Consider this: every major opportunity comes with a natural expiration date. Markets shift, circumstances change, windows close. The perfect moment you wait for today will be gone tomorrow. This is why decisive action must become your natural response to opportunity. But remember, decisive action is not the same as rushed action. Before every major battle, I had already fought it in my mind 100 times. I knew exactly what I would do in every situation. This is why I could act swiftly when others hesitated. My decisions were already made. Look at your life now. What opportunities are you failing to seize? What decisions are you postponing? What actions are you delaying? This ends today. You must develop the habit of decisive action, of seizing the initiative when others are still deliberating. The time for hesitation is over. The time for half measures is past. When opportunity presents itself, you must strike with the full force of your prepared capabilities. This is how empires are built, not through careful deliberation, but through decisive action at crucial moments. Remember, history is not made by those who wait for perfect conditions. It is made by those who act decisively when opportunity appears. Your task is not to wait for the perfect moment. It is to seize the present moment and make it perfect through the force of your action. The fools speak of iron will and unbending determination. Let me tell you what truly marks the master strategist: the ability to bend without breaking, to flow like water around obstacles, to adapt while others shatter. This is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. When I faced the combined armies of Europe, do you know what gave me my greatest advantage? Not my artillery, though it was the finest in the world. Not my cavalry, though it was unmatched. It was my ability to completely change my strategy in the middle of battle. While my enemies remained rigid in their classical formations, I shifted like wind through their lines. You must understand this crucial truth. The world does not yield to rigid plans. It yields to those who can adapt those plans without losing sight of their ultimate objective. When I marched into Italy, I had 5 different strategies prepared. When conditions changed, I didn't break. I transformed. This is the flexibility you must master. Think of the bamboo in a storm. The rigid oak may snap, but the bamboo bends and survives. This is not merely about survival. It is about maintaining your strength while adapting your form. When I lost my fleet at Trafalgar, I didn't persist in a failing naval strategy. I transformed the entire campaign into a land war, where my strength lay. Let me teach you the art of strategic flexibility. First, you must separate your core objective from the methods you use to achieve it. When I sought to defeat Britain, my goal never changed, but my methods evolved constantly. The path to victory is rarely straight. You must be willing to take unexpected turns while keeping your destination fixed in your mind. Here is the paradox you must embrace. True strength lies not in rigid adherence to plans, but in the ability to abandon them instantly when circumstances demand. At Marengo, I was losing until I completely reversed my strategy mid-battle. The ability to make such dramatic shifts, this is what separates masters from mere soldiers. You must develop what I call the strategist's eye. The ability to see not just one path to victory, but many. When I surveyed a battlefield, I didn't see a single plan of attack. I saw a dozen possible approaches, each one ready to be employed as circumstances demanded. This is how you must view your own campaigns. Remember this: flexibility is not the same as lack of direction. Every change in tactics must serve your ultimate strategy. When I adapted my plans, it was never random. Each shift was calculated to bring me closer to my final objective. This is the art you must master, changing your methods while maintaining your mission. Consider your own battles now. How many opportunities have you missed because you were too rigid in your approach? How many victories have slipped away because you couldn't adapt to changing circumstances? The world belongs to those who can transform their strategies without losing their purpose. Let me share a secret of imperial flexibility. Before every major campaign, I prepared not just for what I hoped would happen, but for what could go wrong. I had plans for victory, yes, but also plans for retreat, for delay, for completely changing the nature of the engagement. This is not pessimism, it is mastery. You must train yourself in the same strategic flexibility in your career, your business, your life. What are your alternate routes to victory? What secondary strategies have you prepared? How quickly can you shift from one approach to another? These are not academic questions. They are the essence of survival and success. Look at your life now. Where are you being too rigid? Where are your fixed methods becoming liabilities? Where could flexibility open new paths to victory? The time for unbending approaches is over. You must become like water, flowing around obstacles, finding new paths, yet always moving toward your goal. Remember, history is not made by those who cling to one method. It is made by those who can adapt their methods while maintaining their mission. Your task is not to be unshakable. It is to be unshakable in your objectives while remaining infinitely flexible in your methods. The greatest power lies not in never changing your course, but in being able to change it instantly when advantage demands. This is the true meaning of strength, not rigidity, but calculated adaptability. Master this, and no obstacle will be able to stop your advance. The greatest error in warfare is not weakness. It is fighting from a position of weakness. Let me share with you a truth that saved my armies countless times. The secret to victory is not in overcoming your weaknesses, but in refusing to fight where they exist. When I faced the British Navy, do you know what I didn't do? I didn't try to build a better fleet. I didn't waste resources attempting to match their naval supremacy. Instead, I struck where they couldn't bring their naval power to bear, on land, where my strength lay. This is not cowardice, it is strategic brilliance. You must understand this fundamental principle. Every person, every organization, every empire has weaknesses. The fool tries to eliminate all weaknesses. The master strategist simply ensures that battles are fought where his strengths, not his weaknesses, will determine the outcome. Think of your own campaigns now. How much energy do you waste trying to become adequate at things that others have mastered? How much time do you spend trying to fix weaknesses when you could be exploiting strengths? This ends today. You must learn to choose your battlegrounds. Let me teach you the art of strategic positioning. First, you must honestly assess your capabilities. When I took command of the French army, I didn't pretend we could match British naval power. Instead, I analyzed where we could dominate: rapid land movements, artillery deployment, concentrated force. Then I created situations where only these factors would matter. Here is your first command. Make a merciless inventory of your weaknesses, not to fix them, to avoid them. When I planned campaigns, I spent as much time identifying where not to fight as where to fight. This is how you must think. What situations must you avoid? What battlegrounds favor your opponents? You must develop what I call the strategists. Prudence, the ability to recognize and reject unfavorable engagements before they begin. When I withdrew from certain battles, my enemies called it retreat. They didn't understand that I was simply refusing to fight on their terms. This is how you must operate. Engage only where victory is possible. Remember this: there is no shame in avoiding battle where you are weak. The shame lies in fighting battles you cannot win because of pride or ignorance. When I faced superior forces, I didn't try to overwhelm them directly. I maneuvered until I could engage them where their advantages meant nothing. Consider your current position. Where are you fighting battles you cannot win? Where are you engaging on terms that favor your opponents? These are not merely tactical questions. They are the difference between empire and exile. Let me share a secret of strategic withdrawal. Before every engagement, I identified my escape routes, not because I planned to flee, but because I refused to be forced into fighting from weakness. This is not defeatism. It is ensuring that you always have the option to choose better battlegrounds. You must master this same strategic selectivity. In your career, your business, your life. Where are your strongest positions? What situations favor your unique capabilities? These are the only places you should engage. Everything else is wasteful vanity. Think of it this way: every time you engage in battle where you are weak, you waste resources that could be used where you are strong. When I lost ships fighting the British at sea, those were ships that could have been used to transport troops for land campaigns. Learn from my mistakes. Never fight battles that don't play to your strengths. Look at your life now. What engagements are you currently in where you are fighting from weakness? What battles are you fighting simply because others chose the ground? The time for such strategic negligence is over. You must become the master of selecting your battlegrounds. Remember, history remembers victories, not the battles you were brave enough to avoid. Your task is not to fight every battle. It is to fight only those battles where your strengths will determine the outcome. This is how empires are built, not through constant combat, but through strategic selection of engagements. The power lies not in being able to fight anywhere, but in being able to choose where you fight. This is the essence of strategic warfare, and now it is yours to command. Choose your ground carefully, engage only where you are strong, and victory will follow as naturally as dawn follows night. In the art of war, perception is as powerful as reality. Let me share with you a truth that saved my empire countless times. The appearance of strength can be more decisive than strength itself. Your enemies can only act on what they believe, not on what is true. When I returned from Egypt with a failed campaign, do you know what I did? I orchestrated celebrations of victory. While others saw defeat, I created the perception of triumph. This was not deception, it was strategy. By the time my enemies realized the truth, I had already transformed that perception into reality. You must understand this crucial principle. The world responds not to what you are, but to what you appear to be. When I was weakest after the Russian campaign, I projected absolute confidence. While my enemies saw invincibility, I rebuilt my actual strength. This is the power of strategic perception. Let me teach you the art of perceptual warfare. First, you must understand that every weakness can be masked, every disadvantage can be hidden, every defeat can be reframed. When my armies were exhausted, I had them march through towns at night in circles, the same troops passing again and again, creating the illusion of endless columns of fresh soldiers. Here is your first command. Identify your current vulnerabilities, not to eliminate them, but to mask them. When I lacked cavalry, I didn't waste time lamenting. I positioned my few horsemen where they would be most visible, creating the impression of overwhelming mounted strength. You must develop what I call the illusionist's eye, the ability to see how others perceive your position. When I displayed my artillery, I wasn't just showing weapons. I was showing power, determination, technological superiority. This is how you must think. What message does your presence send? What story does your appearance tell? Remember this. Weakness visible is weakness doubled. Strength perceived is strength multiplied. When I placed my reduced forces on the heights above my enemies, their elevated position made them appear more numerous. Their shadows lengthened their lines. Their presence dominated the valley. Perception became power. But hear this carefully. The art of appearing strong is not about empty shows. It's about strategic demonstration of power. When I wanted to show strength to Austria, I didn't just parade troops. I conducted precise military drills where their spies could see them. The discipline itself became a weapon of intimidation. Consider your own position now. Where are you actually weak? Where do you lack resources, experience, or support? These are not points of shame. They are opportunities for strategic perception management. The master strategist turns vulnerabilities into veils that hide growing strength. Let me share a secret of perceptual dominance. The strongest position is one where your enemies cannot tell your true capabilities. Before every campaign, I deliberately spread conflicting reports about my strength. Some said I was weakened, others claimed I was stronger than ever. This confusion itself became a form of power. You must master this same strategic ambiguity. In your career, your business, your life, where can you create uncertainty about your true position? Where can you make others hesitate because they cannot gauge your real strength? This is not deception. It is strategic positioning. Think of it this way. Every time you reveal your true state, you give power to your opponents. When I lost battles, I announced victories delayed. When I retreated, I called it strategic redeployment. While others saw withdrawal, I painted a picture of armies gathering for a decisive strike. Look at your life now. What weaknesses are you displaying unnecessarily? What vulnerabilities are you advertising to the world? The time for such transparency is over. You must become a master of perceptual warfare. Remember, history is written by the victors because they understood how to shape perception. Your task is not just to build strength. It is to project strength even when building it. This is how empires are maintained, not through constant shows of force, but through strategic management of perception. The power lies not in being the strongest, but in being perceived as unbeatable. This is the essence of strategic dominance, and now it is yours to command. Master the art of perception, and you will find that reality often reshapes itself to match the image you project. Let me share with you the strategy that allowed me to conquer Europe piece by piece. Never attack your enemies when they are united. Divide them, distract them, then destroy them one by one. This is not mere tactics. It is the architecture of empire. When I faced the coalitions against France, do you know what I never did? I never engaged their combined strength. Instead, I turned them against each other. I made Austria fear Prussia more than they feared me. I made Russia suspect Britain's intentions. While they watched each other, I conquered them all. You must understand this fundamental principle. United enemies are strong enemies, but divided. Opponents can be defeated in detail. When I planned my campaigns, my first objective was never battle. It was creating rifts between my adversaries. This is how empires are built, not through brute force, but through strategic division. Let me teach you the art of division. First, you must understand that every alliance has its weak points. Every coalition has its internal tensions. Every united front has its hidden fractures. Your task is not to break what is strong. It is to find these natural fault lines and exploit them. Here is your first command. Identify the connections between your opponents, not to respect them, but to understand where they can be severed. When I faced the European powers, I studied their alliances, their treaties, their mutual obligations. Each of these bonds became a potential point of leverage. You must develop what I call the divider's eye, the ability to see not just your enemies, but the spaces between them. When I looked at a coalition, I didn't see a unified force. I saw a complex web of relationships, each one vulnerable to the right pressure at the right point. Remember this: the greatest victory is not defeating your enemy in battle. It is making them defeat themselves. When I wanted to isolate Britain, I didn't need to destroy their fleet. I simply needed to make their allies question their commitment. Doubt is more powerful than cannon fire. Consider your own battlefield now. Who are your united opponents? What alliances stand against you? These are not insurmountable obstacles. They are opportunities for strategic division. The master strategist turns united opposition into scattered resistance. Let me share a secret of domination. The best way to weaken an alliance is to make each member believe they could get a better deal by betraying the others. Before every campaign, I would send secret emissaries to each of my enemies, offering them special terms. Even if they refused, the mere knowledge of these offers created suspicion. You must master this same strategic disruption. In your career, your business, your life, where can you create beneficial divisions? Where can you turn united opposition into fragmented competition? This is not manipulation. It is strategic positioning. Think of it this way. Every time your enemies cooperate, their strength multiplies. But every time they compete, their strength divides. When I faced the German states, I didn't need to defeat them all. I just needed to make them compete for my favor. Their own ambitions did most of my work for me. Look at your life now. What united forces oppose you? What coalitions block your path? The time for direct confrontation is over. You must become a master of division and strategic distraction. Here is the method I used. First, identify the strongest alliance against you. Then, find its weakest link. Next, offer that weak member a better position in your own coalition. Even if they refuse, others will suspect them. The unity begins to crack. But remember this crucial point. Division is not enough. You must also distract. When I planned to strike Austria, I made noise on Prussia's border. While they watched their northern frontier, I struck from the south. This is how you must operate. Divide their forces, then distract their attention. Your task is not to meet strength with strength. It is to ensure that your enemy's strength is divided, their attention distracted, their forces scattered. This is how empires are built, not through overwhelming power, but through strategic fragmentation of opposition. Remember, history is made by those who understand that united enemies are defeated through division, not direct confrontation. Master this art of strategic fragmentation, and you will find that even the strongest alliances crumble before calculated pressure applied. At their weakest points, let me tell you a truth that no other commander will admit. I knew fear. In the shadows before every battle, in the silence before every campaign, fear was my constant companion. But I learned to transform that fear into a weapon that made enemies tremble. This is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. When I faced the combined armies at Austerlitz, do you know what truly drove me? Not courage, but fear. Fear of defeat, fear of failure, fear of losing everything. But while I felt fear in my heart, my enemies saw only unwavering confidence in my eyes. This is the alchemy of power, turning your deepest fears into their paralyzing doubt. You must understand this crucial principle. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is energy waiting to be harnessed. When I lay awake planning campaigns, my fears showed me every possible point of failure. While others slept in confident ignorance, my fears made me prepare for every contingency. This is how you must use your fears, not to paralyze you, but to prepare you. Let me teach you the art of fear transformation. First, you must acknowledge your fears fully. Name them, understand them. When I feared my supply lines were vulnerable, I didn't suppress that fear. I used it to create 3 backup routes. Your fears are not weaknesses. They are warnings you must heed. Here is your first command. List your deepest fears about your current campaign, not to be crushed by them, but to turn them into action. When I feared my troops' loyalty might waver, I didn't panic. I transformed that fear into a system of rewards and recognition that made them fanatically devoted. You must develop what I call the alchemist's eye, the ability to see how each fear can be transformed into an advantage. When I feared an enemy's superior numbers, that fear drove me to develop better tactics. When I feared betrayal, that fear helped me create better intelligence networks. Every fear became a foundation for strength. Remember this, the greatest fear is not of defeat, it is of being unprepared. When I worried about facing the Austrians, I didn't let that fear make me hesitate. Instead, I let it drive me to prepare so thoroughly that hesitation became impossible. This is how you must use your fears, as fuel for unprecedented preparation. Consider your current fears. What keeps you awake at night? What scenarios haunt your planning? These are not burdens to bear. They are gifts that show you exactly what you must strengthen. The master strategist turns personal fears into impenetrable defenses. Let me share a secret of fear mastery. The most dangerous opponent is not the one who shows no fear. It is the one who has transformed fear into preparation. Before every campaign, I gathered my worst fears and turned each one into a specific, strategic advantage. This is not optimism. It is strategic transformation. You must master this same emotional alchemy. In your career, your business, your life, how can you turn your fears into advantages? How can you make your sleepless nights become your opponent's nightmares? This is not about eliminating fear. It is about weaponizing it. Think of it this way. Every fear you face is showing you a potential weakness that you can transform into strength. When I feared my artillery might be too slow, that fear drove me to create the most mobile artillery force in Europe. Your fears are not your weaknesses. They are your guides to greatness. Look at your life now. What fears are you trying to suppress? What anxieties are you attempting to ignore? The time for denial is over. You must become a master of transformation, turning every fear into a foundation for power. Here is the method I used. Take each fear and ask, how can this make me stronger? When I feared my youth would make others doubt me, I turned that fear into a driving force that made me more prepared than any older general. Your fears can become your greatest assets. Remember, the strongest leaders are not those who feel no fear. They are those who have learned to transform fear into unshakable preparation. Your task is not to become fearless. It is to become a master of using fear as fuel for excellence. The power lies not in being unafraid, but in turning your fears into their doubts, your anxieties into their uncertainties, your preparation into their defeat. This is the essence of strategic mastery. And now it is yours to command. Let me share with you the most overlooked secret of empire building. It is not the great battles that determine your fate. It is what you do before dawn every single day. While others dreamed of glory, I built my power hour by hour, day by day, through ruthless discipline and unshakable routine. When they speak of my victories, they talk of dramatic moments and bold decisions. But do you know what truly built my empire? It was rising at 3 a.m. every morning to study maps while my enemies slept. It was reading every dispatch personally while others delegated. It was maintaining the same iron routine, whether in the palace of the Tuileries or in a tent on the battlefield. You must understand this fundamental truth. Greatness is not built in moments of inspiration. It is built in moments of routine, in the quiet hours when no one is watching. When I commanded France, my days were not filled with grand ceremonies. They were filled with relentless attention to detail, with precise schedules, with disciplined execution of essential tasks. Let me teach you the art of daily power building. First, you must establish what I call the imperial hours, those crucial morning moments when your mind is sharpest. For me, it was between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. During these hours, no one disturbed me except for news of war. This is when empires are truly built, in the silence before the world awakens. Here is your first command. Create your own imperial schedule. Not a gentle suggestion, but an unbreakable commitment. When I was building my power, my routine was more sacred than any law. My ministers knew that every morning at precisely 8 a.m., I would begin my first meetings. Tardiness was treason. Disorganization was defeat. You must develop what I call the commander's discipline, the ability to execute your routine with military precision. When I reviewed troops, I didn't just look at their formations. I examined their daily routines, their maintenance schedules, their training regimens. This is how armies become invincible, through relentless daily discipline. Remember this: the greatest enemy of power is not opposition, it is disorder. When I organized the French state, I didn't just create laws. I created schedules, systems, daily procedures. Every hour had its purpose. Every task had its time. This is how you must structure your life, with military precision and imperial purpose. Consider your current daily routine. How many hours do you waste? How much time slips through your fingers? These are not merely lost moments. They are surrendered advantages. The master strategist turns every hour into a building block of power. Let me share a secret of daily domination. The most dangerous time is not during crises, it is during comfort. Before every major campaign, I would tighten my routine even further. While others relaxed in victory, I increased my discipline. This is not obsession. It is the foundation of lasting power. You must master the same daily dedication in your career, your business, your life. What daily actions build your power? What regular practices increase your strength? Your route to power must be walked every day, not just on special occasions. Think of it this way: every day that passes without strict routine is a day your enemies gain advantage. When I built my empire, I didn't allow even victory to disrupt my schedule. Success is not an excuse to relax. It is a reason to reinforce your routine. Look at your life now. What daily disciplines have you neglected? What regular practices have you abandoned? The time for inconsistency is over. You must become a master of your hours, a commander of your minutes, an emperor of your daily routine. Here is the method I used. Every night, I planned the next day in exact detail. Every morning, I executed that plan with precision. Every evening, I reviewed my adherence to the schedule. This is not mere time management, it is power building in its purest form. Remember, empires are not built in grand moments. They are built in quiet hours, through consistent action, through unrelenting discipline. Your task is not to wait for opportunities, it is to create them through daily disciplined effort. The power lies not in occasional bursts of effort, but in relentless daily execution. This is the essence of imperial discipline, and now it is yours to command. Build your routine, protect your schedule, execute with precision. This is how ordinary days forge extraordinary power. Let me share with you the truth about greatness that comfortable men fear to hear. There is no glory without pain, no victory without sacrifice, no empire built without countless hours of grinding discomfort. But here is what separates emperors. From ordinary men, we understand that pain is merely the price of immortality. When I crossed the Alps with my army, do you know what truly tested us? Not the enemy, we had yet to meet them. It was the relentless cold, the thin air, the endless march upward. Every step brought new pain, every hour demanded more endurance. But I knew something my soldiers needed to learn. The pain would pass, but the glory of what we were achieving would echo through centuries. You must understand this fundamental principle. Pain is not your enemy. It is your mentor. When I trained in artillery, my hands bled from loading cannons. My back ached from calculations done by candlelight. My mind strained from endless tactical studies. But each moment of discomfort was forging the emperor I would become. Let me teach you the art of transcending pain. First, you must understand that pain serves a purpose. It is the chisel that carves greatness from ordinary stone. When my soldiers complained of their hardships, I didn't offer comfort. I showed them the glory that lay beyond their temporary suffering. This is how you must view your own struggles, not as burdens, but as the very tools that shape your destiny. Here is your first command. Identify the pain you fear most, not to avoid it, but to embrace it as your path to greatness. When I feared the pain of potential defeat, I drove myself harder in preparation. When I dreaded the pain of betrayal, I built stronger networks of loyalty. Your fears of pain are not warnings to retreat. They are signposts showing you where you must advance. You must develop what I call the warrior's perspective, the ability to see pain not as punishment, but as purification. When I led my men through Russia's winter, each step was agony, but each step also eliminated those who weren't worthy of the glory we sought. This is how you must view your own challenges, as the crucible that burns away weakness. Remember this, the pain you feel today is forging the strength you'll need tomorrow. When I rebuilt France after the Revolution, every decision brought opposition, every change sparked resistance. But I knew that the discomfort of transformation was temporary. The empire we were building would endure. Consider your current struggles. What pains do you seek to avoid? What discomforts make you hesitate? These are not obstacles to your greatness. They are the very stepping stones that will elevate you above the common masses. The master strategist turns pain into power. Let me share a secret of imperial endurance. The most dangerous pain is not physical. It is the pain of watching lesser men achieve temporary comfort while you continue your march toward greatness. Before every campaign, I saw my officers enjoy their luxuries while I stayed awake planning. Their comfort was temporary. My glory became eternal. You must master this same perspective on pain. In your career, your business, your life, what temporary discomforts are you avoiding that could lead to lasting triumph? What momentary pains could forge your permanent legacy? Your path to greatness will not be comfortable. This is precisely why so few achieve it. Think of it this way. Every pain you endure puts distance between you and those who seek comfort. When I rose through the ranks, my willingness to embrace hardship while others sought ease became my greatest advantage. Your capacity for pain is your capacity for greatness. Look at your life now. What discomforts are you avoiding? What hardships are you trying to escape? The time for comfort is over. You must become intimate with pain, seeing it not as your enemy, but as your ally. In the forging of greatness, here's the method I used. Every day, I would identify one comfort to sacrifice, one hardship to embrace, not for pain's sake, but for the strength it would build. This is not masochism. It is the deliberate forging of imperial resilience. Remember, history remembers not those who lived in comfort, but those who endured pain in the pursuit of greatness. Your task is not to avoid discomfort. It is to transform it into the foundation of your legacy. The power lies not in escaping pain, but in transcending it. This is the essence of imperial endurance, and now it is yours to command. Embrace the pain of growth. Welcome the discomfort of advancement, for these temporary struggles are the very things that make your glory eternal. Let me share with you the most vital secret of maintaining power. Your greatest fortress is not built of stone and mortar. It is built in the depths of your spirit. While others focused on defending territories, I learned to fortify something far more precious, the unshakable core of imperial will. When I faced defeat in Russia, you know what truly saved me from total destruction? Not my armies, they were scattered, not my allies, they were turning against me. It was my fortress of spirit, built through years of disciplined reinforcement. While others broke under pressure, my core remained unassailable. You must understand this fundamental truth. External power flows from internal fortification. When I commanded armies, my first task was not to strengthen their weapons, but to fortify their spirits. A soldier with an unbreakable spirit and a wooden sword is more dangerous than a doubting warrior with the finest steel. Let me teach you the art of spiritual fortification. First, you must identify your core principles, the foundation stones of your inner fortress. When I built my empire, I established absolute principles: meritocracy, order, progress. These weren't mere ideas. They were the walls that protected my spirit from doubt and confusion. Here is your first command. Build your inner walls, high and strong. Not physical barriers, but unshakable convictions. When chaos swirled around me during the revolution, my principles stood like ramparts against the storm. What guards your spirit? What principles form your defensive walls? You must develop what I call the fortress mindset, the ability to maintain inner stability regardless of external turbulence. When Paris erupted in chaos, my mind remained a point of perfect calm. This is not emotional detachment. It is strategic spiritual defense. Remember this: the greatest threats to power come not from external enemies, but from internal weakness. When I faced the combined armies of Europe, their cannons could not breach my resolve because I had spent years reinforcing it. Your spirit must become equally impenetrable. Consider the state of your inner defenses. What beliefs protect your core? What principles guard your purpose? These are not philosophical questions. They are the fundamental concerns of power. The master strategist builds internal fortifications that no external force can breach. Let me share a secret of spiritual defense. The strongest walls are built in times of peace. Before every major campaign, I would spend hours in solitude, reinforcing my convictions, strengthening my resolve. This is not meditation. It is strategic spiritual fortification. You must master this same internal architecture. In your career, your business, your life, what principles form your foundation? What beliefs guard your purpose? Your spirit must become an unassailable fortress from which you can safely direct your campaigns. Think of it this way: every doubt you allow past your defenses becomes a weapon your enemies can use. When I faced opposition in my reforms, my unwavering conviction became a shield that deflected all criticism. Your certainty must become equally impenetrable. Look at your life now. Where are your spiritual defenses weak? Where do doubts and fears breach your walls? The time for vulnerability is over. You must become a master builder of internal fortifications. Here is the method I used. Each morning I would inspect my spiritual defenses like a commander checking his fortress walls. Where doubt had crept in, I reinforced with conviction. Where fear had made cracks, I sealed them with purpose. This is not paranoia. It is spiritual engineering. But remember this crucial point: a fortress is not merely defensive. Your fortified spirit must also be a base from which you launch your campaigns. When I transformed France, every reform flowed from my unshakable core principles. Your inner strength must similarly become the source of your outer power. The power lies not in being unaffected by challenges, but in having built an inner sanctuary that no challenge can breach. This is the essence of spiritual fortification, and now it is yours to command. Build your walls strong, guard your core principles, and let your fortified spirit become the foundation of your empire. Let me share with you the most powerful secret of true leadership. Words may inspire, but actions command. While others made speeches about glory, I charged first into battle. While they proclaimed their brilliance, I worked through the night. Planning campaigns, this is not mere example setting, it is the essence of real power. When I took command of the army of Italy, do you know what truly won my soldiers' loyalty? Not my rank, not my orders, not my speeches. It was seeing me sleep on the ground beside them, eat the same hard bread, endure the same marches. When I aimed my own guns at Toulon, when I personally sighted the artillery, I wasn't just fighting, I was commanding through action. You must understand this fundamental principle. True authority flows not from position, but from demonstration. When I reformed France, I didn't simply issue decrees. I worked 18-hour days, personally reviewing every major project, diving deep into details others thought beneath an emperor. This is how real power is built, through relentless personal action. Let me teach you the art of action-based command. First, you must understand that every order you give is worthless unless backed by your own example. When I demanded dawn marches from my army, I was always the first one mounted, waiting in the dark while others still slept. This is not showmanship. It is the foundation of legitimate authority. Here is your first command. Identify every order you've given recently, not to question them, but to ask yourself, have I done this myself? When I ordered my marshals to master logistics, I had already spent years studying supply lines and calculating provisions. Your authority must be built on personal mastery, not mere position. You must develop what I call the commander's presence, the ability to lead through visible action rather than distant direction. When my soldiers faced the impossible crossing of the Alps, they looked up to see their emperor walking beside them in the snow. This is how you must lead, through demonstrated action, not mere instruction. Remember this. The greatest authority comes not from telling others what to do, but from showing them how to do it. When I rebuilt the French legal system, I didn't just approve laws. I participated in the debates, argued the principles, demonstrated the reasoning. Your leadership must be equally active and evident. Consider your current position of authority. How many of your commands are backed by your own expertise? How many of your expectations have you personally demonstrated? These are not rhetorical questions. They are the measure of your real power to command. Let me share a secret of action-based leadership. The most powerful moments of command often come not from giving orders, but from silent demonstration. Before major battles, I would often be seen personally checking equipment, studying the terrain, preparing like a common soldier. This visible dedication commanded more effectively than any speech. You must master this same principle of demonstrated leadership. In your career, your business, your life, where are you merely directing and where are you actually leading? Your authority must flow not from your position, but from your visible mastery and demonstrated commitment. Think of it this way. Every order you give without personal demonstration weakens your authority. When I commanded armies, I never asked my soldiers to take risks I hadn't taken, to endure hardships I hadn't endured, to master skills I hadn't mastered. Your leadership must be equally grounded in personal action. Look at your life now. Where are you commanding through position rather than demonstration? Where are you relying on authority rather than action? The time for distant leadership is over. You must become a commander who leads from the front, through visible action and demonstrated mastery. Here's the method I used. Before giving any significant order, I would first master the task myself. When I reformed military tactics, I had personally studied and practiced every maneuver. This is not perfectionism. It is the foundation of unquestionable authority. Remember, history remembers not those who gave orders, but those who led through action. Your task is not to direct from a distance. It is to demonstrate through personal mastery and visible commitment. This is how real authority is built, not through words, but through commanding action. The power lies not in your ability to give orders, but in your commitment to demonstrate mastery. This is the essence of true command, and now it is yours to embody. Lead through action, command through demonstration, and let your visible dedication become the source of your authority. Let me share with you the secret that made my words shake empires, while my actions surprised them. Know when to speak like thunder, and when to move like shadow. While others babbled constantly, revealing their plans to all who would listen, I mastered the art of strategic silence, punctuated by moments of overwhelming proclamation. When I addressed my armies before battle, do you know why my words carried such weight? Because I had spent the previous days in complete silence, planning in secrecy. When I finally spoke, my words crashed like lightning across the battlefield. This is not mere rhetoric. It is the science of commanding attention. You must understand this fundamental principle. The power of your words grows with your silence. When I negotiated with other rulers, I would often maintain absolute silence, letting them fill the void with nervous chatter. Then, when I finally spoke, every word carried the weight of an empire's authority. Let me teach you the art of strategic communication. First, you must understand that every word you speak either builds or diminishes your power. When I issued proclamations to France, they were rare and carefully crafted. Each silence between them built anticipation. Each word was chosen to resonate with the force of destiny. Here is your first command. Audit your words, not to eliminate them, but to concentrate their power. When I planned the coup that would make me first consul, I spoke little in public. But when I finally addressed the assembly, my words carried the accumulated force of that calculated silence. You must develop what I call the thunderer's discipline, the ability to hold your words until the perfect moment, then deliver them with overwhelming impact. When my enemies expected lengthy justifications, I would respond with short, devastating statements. When they prepared for my thunder, I would maintain silence and act in shadows. Remember this: the greatest power often lies not in what you say, but in what you deliberately leave unsaid. When I rebuilt France's government, many of my most significant changes were implemented in complete silence. No announcements, no explanations. Just decisive action followed by accomplished fact. Consider your own communication. How many opportunities do you waste through premature speech? How much power do you surrender through unnecessary explanation? These are not merely tactical questions. They are the essence of commanding authority. Let me share a secret of imperial communication. The most powerful message is often the one delivered through action rather than words. Before launching major campaigns, I would maintain absolute silence about my intentions. My actions would speak with a force no proclamation could match. You must master this same strategic silence. In your career, your business, your life. Where are you speaking when you should be acting? Where are you explaining when you should be executing? Your power must flow not from constant communication, but from perfectly timed words, backed by silent action. Think of it this way: every unnecessary word you speak is a small surrender of power. When I dealt with conspirators, I didn't argue or justify. I would maintain silence until the perfect moment, then speak once with such force that no response was possible. Your communication must achieve the same devastating efficiency. Look at your life now. Where are you diluting your authority through excessive speech? Where are you weakening your position through unnecessary explanation? The time for constant communication is over. You must become a master of strategic silence and calculated declaration. Here is the method I used. Before any significant pronouncement, I would first build power through silence. When I returned from exile, I spoke little until reaching Paris. Then, my words carried the force of an inevitable restoration. This is not manipulation. It is the architecture of authority. Remember, history remembers not those who spoke constantly, but those who matched powerful words with even more powerful silences. Your task is not to fill every moment with speech. It is to make your words so powerful that they resonate through time. The power lies not in how much you say, but in how perfectly you time your words in silence. This is the essence of commanding communication. And now it is yours to master. Speak rarely, but with purpose. Act often, but in silence. And let the contrast between your thunder and your shadow become your signature of power. Let me share with you the secret that transformed an army of conscripts into the most formidable fighting force Europe had ever seen. True power comes not from commanding obedience, but from inspiring unshakable allegiance. While other rulers demanded submission, I cultivated devotion. When I took command of the army of Italy, do you know what separated me from other generals? They saw soldiers as chess pieces to be moved by command. I saw men whose devotion could be earned through shared purpose. This is not mere leadership technique. It is the foundation of lasting power. You must understand this fundamental principle. Obedience lasts only as long as authority can be enforced. But allegiance? It endures through defeat, through hardship, through the darkest hours. When my old guard followed me into exile, it wasn't because of orders. It was because I had earned their undying loyalty. Let me teach you the art of inspiring. Allegiance. First, you must understand that loyalty cannot be demanded, it must be cultivated. When I led my men, I learned their names, shared their hardships, celebrated their victories. Each soldier felt not like a servant, but like a vital part of a grand destiny. Here is your first command. Stop demanding loyalty and start earning it. When I reformed France, I didn't just issue edicts. I created systems that gave talented men of any background the chance to rise to greatness. This is how you build allegiance. By aligning your success with theirs, you must develop what I call the loyalty maker's eye, the ability to see what truly motivates those you lead. When I created the Legion of Honor, I understood that men will fight harder for glory than for gold. This is how you must think. What drives your people? What inspires their deepest dedication? Remember this: the greatest power comes not from having many servants, but from having devoted followers. When I marched across Europe, my armies didn't follow orders. They pursued a shared vision. Each soldier felt like a creator of history, not merely its instrument. Consider your own position of leadership. How many follow you from obligation? How many from genuine allegiance? These are not academic questions. They are the measure of your true power. The master leader turns mere subordinates into passionate believers. Let me share a secret of inspiring devotion. The strongest allegiance comes when people feel they are part of something greater than themselves. Before every campaign, I would share not just orders, but visions. Each soldier understood how his role contributed to grand historical destiny. You must master this same art of inspiration. In your career, your business, your life, how can you transform routine tasks into meaningful missions? How can you make each person feel like a vital part of something extraordinary? This is not manipulation. It is the essence of true leadership. Think of it this way. Every time you rely on authority alone, you weaken your true power. When I led armies, I didn't just command, I inspired. Each victory belonged not to me alone, but to every soldier who fought for our shared vision. Your leadership must create this same sense of collective destiny. Look at your life now. Where are you merely commanding when you could be inspiring? Where are you enforcing when you could be enrolling? The time for mere authority is over. You must become a master of inspiration, a creator of unshakable allegiance. Here is the method I used. For every order given, I would first ensure that its purpose was understood and embraced. When I launched campaigns, my soldiers knew not just what to do, but why it mattered. This is not excessive explanation. It is the foundation of willing devotion. But remember this crucial point. True allegiance must be earned anew each day. When I rose to power, I never took loyalty for granted. Each decision, each victory, each reward reinforced our shared destiny. This is how you must lead, through continuous renewal of earned devotion. Remember, history is moved not by those who command the most, but by those who inspire the deepest allegiance. Your task is not to accumulate subordinates. It is to cultivate devoted allies who see their destiny aligned with yours. The power lies not in your ability to give orders, but in your capacity to inspire passionate allegiance. This is the essence of true leadership, and now it is yours to master. Build not an army of servants, but a force of devoted believers who see in your vision their own path to greatness. Let me share with you the secret that transformed catastrophes into conquests. When chaos descends, when disaster looms, when others panic, that is precisely when you must smile. For in every storm lies the seed of greater victory, if only you have the vision to see it and the courage to seize it. When I returned from Egypt to find France in turmoil, do you know what I felt? Not fear, but opportunity. While others saw only crisis, I saw the perfect conditions for transformation. This is not mere optimism. It is strategic vision at its most powerful. The greatest opportunities often come disguised as disasters. You must understand this fundamental principle. Chaos is not your enemy. It is your ally in disguise. When revolution swept through France, it wasn't just destroying the old order, it was clearing the ground for a new empire. This is how you must view every crisis, not as an end, but as a beginning. Let me teach you the art of thriving in chaos. First, you must understand that the most dangerous moment in any storm is not the damage it causes, but the panic it induces in others. When I faced coalition after coalition of enemies, their greatest weakness was not their armies. It was their fear of uncertainty. Here is your first command. Study chaos like a science. When I planned campaigns, I didn't just prepare for order, I prepared for disorder. I learned how systems break, how organizations crumble, how people react to uncertainty. This knowledge became my greatest weapon. You must develop what I call the chaos rider's eye, the ability to see patterns in disorder, opportunities in disruption. When my enemies retreated in disarray, I didn't just pursue them. I studied how their formations broke, where their command structures failed. Every disaster became a lesson in possibility. Remember this, the greatest advantage in times of chaos goes not to the strongest, but to the most adaptable. When winter destroyed my army in Russia, those who survived weren't necessarily the strongest soldiers. They were the ones who could adapt fastest to brutal new realities. Consider how you face uncertainty now. Do you retreat from chaos? Do you wait for clarity? These are not merely philosophical questions. They are the difference between mastery and mediocrity. The master strategist doesn't just survive chaos. They harness it. Let me share a secret of chaos mastery. The best time to implement dramatic change is when systems are already disrupted. When I reformed French law, I didn't do it during times of peace. I did it when old structures were already weakened by revolution. Chaos makes transformation easier. You must master this same strategic opportunism. In your career, your business, your life, where can you turn disruption to advantage? Where can you use uncertainty as a tool? This is not opportunism. It is strategic wisdom of the highest order. Think of it this way. Every moment of chaos is a moment when normal rules are suspended. When I took power in France, it wasn't Through traditional means, it was through understanding that times of crisis create unique opportunities for bold action. Your greatest victories will come from similar insights. Look at your life now. What storms are you trying to avoid? What chaos are you trying to suppress? The time for seeking safety is over. You must become a master of disorder, a commander who smiles when others tremble. Here is the method I used. In every crisis, I would immediately seek not safety, but advantage. When enemies attacked, my first thought was not defense. It was how to turn their aggression into an opportunity for counterattack. This is not recklessness. It is strategic opportunism. Remember, history belongs not to those who avoid chaos, but to those who learn to command it. When others see only danger, you must train yourself to see opportunity. When others seek shelter, you must seek advantage. This is how empires are built, not by avoiding storms, but by mastering them. The power lies not in your ability to prevent chaos, but in your capacity to thrive within it. This is the essence of strategic mastery, and now it is yours to command. Embrace the storm, smile at the chaos, and let your calm confidence become a weapon that turns disorder into opportunity. Let me share with you the most difficult truth a commander must master. Sometimes victory demands retreat. While others see only shame in withdrawal, the master strategist understands that a strategic retreat is not surrender. It is the preparation for greater victory. When I pulled back from Moscow, do you know what truly separated me from my predecessors? They would have fought to the last man, sacrificing everything for pride. I chose instead to preserve my forces for future battles. This is not cowardice. It is the highest form of strategic wisdom. You must understand this fundamental principle. Not every battle must be fought to the end. When I faced overwhelming forces in my early campaigns, I didn't hesitate to retreat when necessary. But each retreat was not an end. It was a preparation for a more decisive advance. Let me teach you the art of strategic withdrawal. First, you must understand that retreat is not about running away. It is about choosing the time and place of your next engagement. When I withdrew from Syria, it wasn't because I feared battle. It was because I saw greater opportunities elsewhere. Here is your first command. Learn to recognize when retreat serves your greater strategy. When I faced the combined armies of Europe, I would sometimes surrender ground, not in defeat, but to draw them into positions where their superior numbers became a disadvantage. Your retreats must have purpose. You must develop what I call the retreater's eye, the ability to see withdrawal not as defeat, but as tactical repositioning. When I pulled back from certain positions, I wasn't abandoning my goals. I was finding better paths to achieve them. This is how you must think. Every step back should set up 2 steps forward. Remember this: the greatest error is not in retreating. It is in retreating without purpose or plan. When I withdrew from battles, it was always with clear intent, to preserve forces, to occupy better ground, to tempt enemies into disadvantageous positions. Your retreats must have similar strategic clarity. Consider your current position. Where are you fighting battles that drain your resources? Where are you holding ground that no longer serves your strategy? These are not signs of failure. They are opportunities for strategic repositioning. Let me share a secret of masterful retreat. The best withdrawal is one that appears to be advanced to your enemies. Before abandoning positions, I would often increase activity there, making my enemies think I was reinforcing when I was actually preparing to withdraw. This is not deception. It is strategic misdirection. You must master this same strategic fluidity. In your career, your business, your life, where can you pull back now to strike more effectively later? Where can you regroup your forces for greater impact? This is not about giving up. It is about choosing your battles wisely. Think of it this way: every position you hold requires resources to maintain. When I retreated from untenable positions, I wasn't just avoiding defeat. I was freeing resources for more promising opportunities. Your strategic withdrawals must achieve the same efficiency. Look at your life now. What positions are you holding out of pride rather than purpose? What battles are you fighting simply because you've started them? The time for such costly persistence is over. You must become a master of strategic disengagement and purposeful repositioning. Here is the method I used. Before any withdrawal, I would identify 3 things: the resources I would preserve, the positions I would occupy next, and the advantages I would gain through movement. This is not defeat planning, it is strategic redeployment. But remember this crucial point: retreat is only the first step. It must be followed by regrouping, consolidating your forces, learning from setbacks, strengthening your position. Then comes redeployment, striking again from a position of renewed strength. Remember, history celebrates not those who never retreated, but those who turned strategic withdrawals into legendary advances. Your task is not to hold every position. It is to hold those positions that serve your greater strategy. The power lies not in never stepping back, but in making every retreat serve your ultimate advance. This is the essence of strategic mastery. And now it is yours to command. Choose your battles, preserve your strength, and let each withdrawal become the foundation for greater victory. Let me share with you the secret that preserved my empire through countless challenges. Not every battle threatens your crown. While lesser commanders exhausted themselves fighting every skirmish, I learned to distinguish between battles that could cost me a day and those that could cost me an empire. When I faced the coalition armies, do you know what truly guided my strategy? Not the desire to win every engagement, but the imperative to preserve what mattered most. I would sometimes surrender provinces to protect Paris, lose battles to save campaigns. This is not compromise. It is imperial wisdom. You must understand this fundamental principle. Not all threats are equal. When I governed France, I didn't respond to every challenge to my authority. Some provocations I ignored entirely, saving my strength for truly decisive moments. This is how empires endure, through selective engagement. Let me teach you the art of strategic priority. First, you must understand that your resources are finite, but your potential battles are infinite. When I faced simultaneous threats, I didn't try to counter them all. I identified which ones threatened my core power and focused my strength there. Here is your first command. Learn to distinguish between peripheral skirmishes and crown-threatening battles. When rebel factions arose in distant provinces, I didn't always rush to crush them. But when dissent emerged in Paris, that commanded my immediate and full attention. Your response must match the true level of threat. You must develop what I call the crown guarder's eye, the ability to see instantly which challenges truly threaten your base of power. When I evaluated threats, I didn't just assess their immediate danger. I analyzed how each could affect my ultimate source of authority. This is how you must think. What truly threatens your foundation? Remember this: the greatest danger lies not in losing battles, but in losing perspective about which battles matter. When I fought in Spain, I lost many engagements to guerrilla forces, but I never lost sight of where my empire's true center of gravity lay. Your focus must maintain similar clarity. Consider your current challenges. Which ones truly threaten your core power? Which ones merely irritate your pride? These are not philosophical questions. They are the essence of strategic survival. The master strategist knows which battles can be conceded without risking the crown. Let me share a secret of imperial preservation. The most dangerous threats often come not from your strongest enemies, but from seemingly minor challenges that strike at your foundation. Before every campaign, I would assess not just the military threat, but how each engagement could affect my grip on power in Paris. You must master this same strategic discernment. In your career, your business, your life, what truly threatens your base of power, what merely threatens your pride. Your resources must be reserved for battles that truly matter. Think of it this way: Every battle you fight depletes resources you might need for truly crucial conflicts. When I faced enemies across Europe, I sometimes ignored provocations that lesser commanders would have rushed to answer. Your strength must be preserved for decisive moments. Look at your life now. How many battles are you fighting simply because they've been offered? How many resources are you wasting on conflicts that don't threaten your crown? The time for such unfocused engagement is over. You must become a master of strategic selection. Here's the method I used. For every challenge that arose, I would ask 3 questions. Does this threaten my base of power? Can this be safely ignored? Would engaging here weaken my position elsewhere? This is not overthinking. It is strategic prioritization. Remember, history remembers not those who fought every battle, but those who fought the right battles. Your task is not to engage every enemy. It is to preserve and extend your core power. This is how empires are maintained, through careful selection of decisive engagements. The power lies not in your ability to win every fight, but in your wisdom to choose which fights truly matter. This is the essence of imperial preservation, and now it is yours to command. Guard your crown, ignore the insignificant, and let your selective engagement become the foundation of lasting power. Let me share with you the most dangerous secret I learned at the height of my power. Victory itself can become your greatest enemy. While others celebrated their triumphs, I learned that success plants the seeds of future defeat, unless you master the art of remaining hungry even at the feast of victory. When I conquered most of Europe, do you know what truly threatened my empire? Not the remaining enemies, but the comfort that came with conquest. After each victory, I saw my generals grow softer, my administrators become more indulgent, my court more concerned with luxury than vigilance. This is not mere decadence. It is the natural poison that success delivers. You must understand this fundamental principle. Victory does not mark the end of struggle. It merely changes its nature. When I defeated Austria, I didn't celebrate for long. Instead, I immediately began preparing for the next challenge. This is how empires endure, by treating victory not as an end, but as a new beginning. Let me teach you the art of maintaining hunger. First, you must understand that success is more dangerous than failure. When I lost battles, my entire army knew we had to improve. But when we won, that's when complacency would begin its subtle corruption. The greatest danger comes not in the moment of defeat, but in the aftermath of triumph. Here is your first command. After every victory, immediately identify your next vulnerability. When I won at Austerlitz, I didn't bask in glory. I began analyzing what the battle had revealed about our weaknesses. This is not paranoia. It is the price of maintaining power. You must develop what I call the victor's vigilance, the ability to see danger most clearly when others see only cause for celebration. When I achieved each new height of power, I would immediately look for the next threat. This is how you must think. What weakness is your current success hiding? Remember this: the greatest empires fall not at their weakest moment, but at what they believed was their strongest. When I was at my most powerful, that's when I became most vulnerable to overlooking crucial details. Your success must make you more alert, not less. Consider your current victories. What comforts are they tempting you to embrace? What vigilance are they tempting you to relax? These are not paranoid questions. They are the essence of sustainable success. The master's strategist is most cautious precisely when others would be most confident. Let me share a secret of maintaining edge. The most dangerous moment is not during the battle, but in the ease that follows victory. Before every major campaign, I would study not just my current enemies, but my own forces, looking for signs that success had made them soft. This is not distrust. It is essential vigilance. You must master this same strategic awareness. In your career, your business, your life, where has success made you comfortable? Where has victory made you vulnerable? Your greatest achievements must become your warning signals, not your security blankets. Think of it this way. Every victory carries within it the seeds of future defeat. When I conquered new territories, each one brought not just glory, but new vulnerabilities. Your successes must be treated as new responsibilities, not final achievements. Look at your life now. What victories are making you soft? What successes are blinding you to emerging threats? The time for comfortable achievement is over. You must become a master of maintaining hunger, even in abundance. Here is the method I used. After every triumph, I would immediately set a new, more challenging goal. When Paris celebrated our victories, I was already planning the next campaign. This is not ambition. It is the discipline required to maintain power. Remember, history remembers not those who achieved great victories, but those who sustained them. Your task is not just to win. It is to remain undefeated by your own success. This is how empires are maintained, through constant vigilance, especially in times of triumph. The power lies not in achieving victory, but in remaining undiminished by it. This is the essence of lasting success, and now it is yours to master. Turn each triumph into a new challenge, each achievement into a call for greater vigilance, and never let victory become the seed of your defeat. Let me share with you my final and most crucial lesson, the one I learned too late on a lonely island stripped of empire and glory. While I mastered many arts of power, I failed to master myself, and in that failure lay the seed of my ultimate defeat. When I marched into Russia, do you know what truly defeated me? Not the winter, though it was brutal. Not the Russians, though. They fought well. It was my own hubris, the fatal belief that my will alone could bend reality to my desires. This is not mere reflection. It is the most expensive lesson in history. You must understand this fundamental principle. The greatest enemy you will ever face is not external. It is the shadow of your own success. When I ruled Europe, I began to believe my own legend. I stopped listening to counsel, ignored warning signs, dismissed the limits of possibility. This is how empires fall, through the internal corruption of unchecked power. Let me teach you the art of self-mastery that I learned too late. First, you must understand that power itself becomes a kind of poison. The more success you achieve, the more it blinds you to your own fallibility. When I was rising to power, I listened, adapted, learned, but at my height, I commanded where I should have consulted. Here is your final command. Guard not just against external enemies, but against the enemy within. When I was winning my greatest victories, I was also sowing the seeds of my defeat. I began to believe that my genius could overcome any obstacle, that my destiny was unstoppable. Your greatest strength, confidence, can become your fatal weakness. You must develop what I call the emperor's humility, the ability to maintain perspective even at the height of power. When I lost everything, I finally understood that true strength lies not in believing yourself invincible, but in remaining clear-eyed about your limitations. This is how you must think. What truths are your successes hiding from you? Remember this: the most dangerous lies are the ones you tell yourself. When I convinced myself that I could conquer Russia without regard for logistics, climate, or the limits of human endurance, I wasn't just making a strategic error, I was succumbing to the ultimate imperial delusion. Consider your own position now. What warnings are you ignoring? What counsel are you dismissing? These are not theoretical questions. They are the difference between sustained success and catastrophic failure. The master strategist must first master himself. Let me share the secret I learned in exile. Power doesn't corrupt gradually. It blinds instantly. Each victory, each triumph, each conquest adds another layer to the veil between you and reality. Before my invasion of Russia, my advisors tried to warn me, but I had stopped listening long before. You must master this final wisdom. In your career, your business, your life? Where are you becoming blind to reality? Where is success deafening you to warning signs? Your greatest achievements must make you more receptive to truth, not more resistant to it. Think of it this way. Every success carries within it the temptation of arrogance. When I was at my peak, I forgot that the same principles that built my empire still applied to me. Nature, logistics, human limits. I began to think myself exempt from these fundamental laws. Look at your life now. What warnings are you ignoring? What fundamental truths are you trying to defy? The time for self-deception is over. You must become a master of reality, not its opponent. Here is the wisdom I gained too late. The greatest power lies not in trying to control everything, but in understanding what you cannot control. When I lost my empire, I finally understood that true mastery begins with mastering oneself. Remember, history remembers not just our victories, but the moments when we lost our way. Your task is not just to gain power, it is to remain worthy of it. This is how empires endure, through the constant struggle for self-mastery. The final power lies not in your ability to conquer others, but in your capacity to rule yourself. This is the ultimate lesson of empire, and now it is yours to master. Guard against the enemy within. Stay humble in victory, and never let success blind you to the eternal truths that govern all things, even emperors.